The PS3 was released on November of 2006. Around that time, cell phones were getting steadily more sophisticated, and phone companies tried to reach every kind of audience, including gamers. The arrival of more complex games for phones back then was only possible thanks to Java 2 Micro Edition, which became the dominant platform for mobile games from 2002 and enabled big console franchises to be ported to feature phones between 2004 and 2010. Companies like Gameloft, EA Mobile, and Glue specialized in this and released simplified versions either alongside or shortly after the console launches. But obviously phones weren't designed for gaming, so each developer had to adapt and build mechanics that worked on weak hardware and limited controls. With all that in mind, I decided to check out how some of these PS3 games look on mobile. The first Assassin's Creed was released in November of 2007. Everyone knows this game. Rooftop parkour, assassinating major targets, stealth missions. Even though the first entry is simpler, it's still a really fun game today. The mobile version tries to capture the essence, but as a 2D platformer. The mobile game doesn't have its own history. It's the original history, but heavily simplified. Now to the gameplay. At first, we see the game was developed by Gameloft, probably the biggest mobile game company up to 2015. So, after turning down the game volume, we will start the gameplay. We get a brief intro to the history that passes too quickly to read, and then we start playing. Our master gives us our first target to assassinate, and the music stops. Yeah, most of these games don't have in-game sound during gameplay, so it's completely silent while you play. We walk a bit and already kill our first enemy. As you can see, the game keeps the main aspects of the original. Parkour, stealth assassinations, sword combat, of course, all heavily simplified. The parkour system is actually pretty nice. Climbing walls, swimming on ropes and kind of stuff is fun. We then get our first sword duel, which is surprisingly dynamic. Besides hitting and defending, there are some quick time events that let you kill the enemy instantly. We push forward a bit more in the level and assassinate our target. After that, we run away and the stage is complete. I basically explained the whole game at this point. It doesn't really change much after this. All stages follow the same basic pattern. Progress to the level solving small puzzles and doing parkour until you reach a target. Even so, the game doesn't feel too repetitive. Almost every level introduces a new mechanic or a different way to kill your target. The game even has boss fights and different tools, like a climbing hook that makes the gameplay more dynamic. For an old mobile game, it's very good. And remember, this is the first one. There were 4 more Assassin's Creed mobile titles. They made this part so well, it even feels like a Game Boy Advanced game. Playing this back then must have been amazing. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. I will say up front, this game has absolutely nothing to do with the original Modern Warfare. You get some context for the history, but I don't know how faithful it is to the original. We start on the battlefield controlling this soldier. In this game, almost all the buttons are for movement. There are 8 buttons to move, 1 to shoot and 1 to plant explosives. After recruiting some soldiers to our group, we see our first enemies, who die very easily. The game has a system where your character auto-aims at enemies. So when an enemy appears on screen, you just hold the fire button, which makes the game very tedious. Since no strategy or careful play is needed, our character has a lot of health and enemies die extremely easy. This game could definitely be much better if it wasn't so easy and if the controls weren't so simplified. At least we can comically jump the barricade with our little group. This game is trash. Need for Speed Most Wanted. Now, a racing game. This is the part of Need for Speed Most Wanted, not that Most Wanted. But this one, everyone knows Need for Speed. Street racing where you buy cars and upgrade them as you go. Most Wanted's standout feature is the police system. During races, a police chase can start and you must lose them. It's not overly complex, but it's the car mechanic and here is no different. So let's see how the parts turn it out. When we open the game, we see a menu with options for tracks, garage and technical stuff. We chose the only available track and start the tutorial. Like the music? I hope so, because it's the only track you will hear during the entire game. The game then teaches us how to control the car. The vehicle accelerates on its own. You only control steering, the brake and the nitro. As in very Need for Speed, the streets are full of traffic trying to get in your way. Besides the auto acceleration, the controls feels kind of odd. You don't really do the turns. It's more like Top Gear, where the car handles the turn and you just nudge into the right direction. Then we get our first police chase. Besides the cop cars chasing you, there are barricades and obstacles placed by the police. A nice touch. The chase simply ends and the tutorial finishes. Now the game throws us into our first real race. We pick up grades, none, because we have no money, and go to the race. The race was pretty dull. I basically just drove forward, and since the car accelerates itself, that means I did almost nothing. I continue the race, hit a cone, and I lose? What the heck? The minimap clearly shows I'm ahead. I didn't earn a single cent from that race. Screw this game. Even though it looks nice, it has very few other positives. The gameplay is almost non-existent and it's not very fun. And I made a single mistake. Hit the cone and I lost. This is the first race in the whole game and I can't mess up once? Better stick to the console version. Not this one. That one. That's the good one. Sonic Unleashed. Sonic. It's hard to find a platform that hasn't had a Sonic game. On mobile, we have several Sonic titles, but I want to show Sonic Unleashed, since the original alternates between two gameplay cycles. Daytime, where you play Sonic as you're used to, and the nighttime, where Sonic becomes an elastic werewolf, the Werehog, and the game turns into a kind of hack and slash. I was very curious how that mechanic would be adapted for phones. We start a game and see a very simple menu. We click new game. I didn't hit the history because it isn't interesting even in the console versions. So we start the level controlling Sonic in a classic style, with the dash from the newer games. The coloring and art and the screen size reminded me a lot of the DS Sonic games, which are great, so I had the right expectations from the start. The controls are simple, but more than enough for a Sonic game. Move, jump and the button for dash, and I will say it, this game is very good. If it weren't for the extremely low frame rate, I'd easily believe it was a Game Boy Advance or a Nintendo DS game. Regarding sound effects, there's basically nothing. That's a shame, given how great Sonic music usually is. The only sound you get is the main menu tune, which sounds like a news program intro. Let's start the first stage. As I said, this has a feel similar to classic Sonic. Platform levels with multiple paths, lots of item boxes, dash pads and simple enemies. There are the classic loops and a stretch of water I ran over. The only problem I noticed was the frame rate. Sonic is very fast, so with a low refresh rate, the game can get confusing and you lose track of how to progress. But I reached the end of the stage and cleared the first level. Now comes the part where the game really falls off. As I said, Sonic Unleashed alternates day and night, and the night stage let you play as the Werehog. Playing as him is very tedious, he's slow, and the platform sections are awful because his jumps are low and he has a grappling mechanic where he shoots an elastic arm to grab platforms. And to try to adapt to the Werehog's hack and slash, they put lots of enemies in the stage that you have to hit several times to defeat, but the combat is very bland. Enemies don't react and aren't challenging. The Werehog levels levels are completely linear, you just go straight to the end. Everything within is very slow, and the contrast with the daytime stage is huge, which makes the Warhog gameplay feels even worse. Levels seems endless because of the sluggish pacing. There are parts where hordes of enemies attack you, which is not fun. At the end of the level, there's a boss fight that is basically a normal enemy, recolored yellow with more health and runs back and forth. After defeating that amazing boss, we finally finish the first Warhog level. Then we will start another day stage with normal Sonic, which doesn't last long since day stages are about 4 times faster than night ones. Well, there's no much more to say. The game ends up looping day stage, night stage. I would play more, but the night stages killed my motivation to progress. The game would be amazing if it only had the day stages, looking like a Nintendo DS title, as I said, but they messed up the Warhog so badly that it ruined the platforming and made the game tedious. As I said at the beginning, developers did what they could to keep the games as faithful as possible to their originals, adapting and inventing new functional mechanics for a device that wasn't made for gaming. For companies, these games were mostly seen as market, a way to funnel players to the original versions. But like me, many people played these mobile titles a lot back then and remember them fondly. Those were the games I want to show. I hope you liked the content, and if you have any video suggestion, feel free to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching, bye!